My friends, there comes a moment in every believer's life when the prayers you whispered in the stillness of the night are suddenly answered in ways you never imagined. I remember a time when I was pressed on every side. The bills were stacked, opportunities seemed closed, and my heart was weary. Yet I clung to the promises of God, even when my mind doubted. Then, without warning, a door opened. A small opportunity turned into a great provision. It wasn't about the size of the money. It was about the unmistakable truth that the hand of heaven had moved. I knew at that moment that no human plan could have arranged it. But here is what I learned. The true challenge began after the blessing came. My first impulse was to share it with everyone, to declare it loudly. Yet in the quiet of prayer, I sensed a gentle voice saying, "Hold this close. This is between you and me." It was a test. Would I seek the applause of people, or would I give glory in private to the one who provided? I kept it in my heart. I gave thanks in silence. I learned that gratitude doesn't need a stage. It needs sincerity. When we make our blessings a public show, we invite pride and sometimes envy. But when we honor God in the secret place, the blessing multiplies in ways unseen. That season taught me stewardship. I realized the blessing was not just for my comfort. It was a trust. I began to handle it carefully, paying what needed to be paid, sowing into good works quietly, helping someone in need without expecting recognition. I discovered that real abundance is not in the amount we hold, but in the faithfulness with which we use it. As my faith deepened, so did my vision. I saw that the same God who provided for one need could open doors for greater things, not merely financial, but strength in trials, wisdom for decisions, peace in my home, and courage for the future. That private blessing became a foundation on which bigger dreams could stand, and perhaps the most beautiful part was how people around me noticed a change. They didn't know the details, they couldn't see the numbers, but they saw the peace, the confidence, the gratitude in my words and actions. That silent testimony spoke louder than any public announcement ever could. I share this to encourage you. Do not despise the day of small beginnings. Do not think your prayers are unheard. And when the blessing comes, as surely as day follows night, honor the one who gave it by how you receive it. Keep your heart pure, keep your motives clean, and let your life more than your words become the testimony of divine faithfulness. Remember, sometimes the most powerful sermon you will ever preach is the life you live after the blessing arrives. Trust, obey, stay humble, and let your story inspire without needing to boast. The same God who lifted me up can do the same for you. There are seasons in life when you reach the very edge of your strength. You pray, you plan, you work hard, yet the need remains unmet. You may wake up at night wondering how you will pay the bills, how you will take care of your family, how you will continue to move forward. That is often the very place where divine provision begins to break through. It does not always arrive in the way we expect. Sometimes it is not a large sum of money falling into your hands. Sometimes it is an unexpected job offer, a business idea that suddenly blossoms, a door that was shut for years opening wide, or a friend who shows up at just the right time with the help you needed. The remarkable thing about these moments is the sense you have in your spirit that this is not mere chance. You know it because the timing is too precise and the impact is too perfect to be explained by coincidence. You feel as if heaven itself leaned in to answer your prayer. This recognition transforms the experience. You realize that the blessing is not about the number written on the check or the amount transferred into your account. It is about the evidence that you have not been forgotten. That realization fills you with courage. It awakens a new level of trust. You understand that the same God who created the universe is also attentive to the details of your personal struggle. That awareness reshapes how you see every opportunity. You begin to view your skills, your connections, your next step not merely as human resources, but as channels through which divine provision can flow. Such understanding also guards you against despair, because you learn that no circumstance is too fixed, no situation too closed for the Creator to intervene. Each unexpected arrival of provision becomes a testimony you carry in your heart. It strengthens your faith for the future. You begin to remember the moment provision came when you least expected it, and it reminds you that no challenge you face today is beyond the reach of the same faithful hand. The lesson is clear. Provision is not just about money. It is about the presence of God guiding, sustaining, and opening ways where there was none. When you recognize this truth, every blessing becomes more than a resource. It becomes a sign that you are seen, loved, and guided, and that is a greater treasure than any figure in your bank account. When financial blessing finally arrives, many think the test of faith is over, but often a new test begins. This test is quieter yet deeper because it reaches the motives of the heart. When you have been praying for help and it comes, the natural human desire is to announce it, to tell your friends, to show your family, sometimes even to boast. There is a certain satisfaction in saying, "Look what has happened to me." Yet in many instances, the wisest course is to pause. The quietness in your spirit prompts you to hold the blessing close. This is not about secrecy born from fear, but about reverence. The heart must remain humble, because the purpose of the blessing was never to glorify the receiver, but to glorify the giver. If you rush to speak, you risk stirring envy in others or provoking pride within yourself. There is also the subtle danger of forgetting who provided the blessing in the first place. This inner test calls for discipline. It requires you to resist the urge for applause and instead turn your gratitude upward in the privacy of your prayer. The more significant the blessing, the stronger the temptation to display it. But this is where character is formed. You begin to understand that the true reward is not in others' admiration, but in the peace of knowing that you walked in humility before the one who provided. Keeping certain victories private also protects you. Not everyone will celebrate your breakthrough. Some may resent it or even try to undermine it. By keeping it close, you give space for the blessing to take root without interference. Furthermore, the discipline of silence helps you to focus on the purpose of the provision. Rather than being distracted by reactions, you are drawn into deeper gratitude. That quietness becomes fertile soil for faith to grow, because it keeps the relationship between you and God uncluttered by outside opinions. Over time, you learn that not every testimony needs to be spoken immediately. Some testimonies mature best in the heart until the right moment comes to share them. This lesson is a gift in itself because it trains you to value humility above recognition and sincerity above display. The quiet test of the heart, when passed, becomes a lasting foundation on which future blessings can rest. A financial blessing is never only for the present moment. It is a trust placed in your hands. How you handle it reveals not only your gratitude, but also your readiness for greater responsibility. Many people pray for increase but forget that increase also demands wisdom. When the blessing came to me, I was first relieved, then quickly aware that my next choices would determine whether it became a source of stability or merely a passing relief. I had to ask myself how to honor the purpose for which it was given. That meant setting aside the impulse to spend quickly or to make grand displays. Instead, I looked at the debts that needed to be paid, the obligations that had been waiting, the small but meaningful ways I could use the provision to bless others quietly. I realized that to be a steward is to understand that the blessing is not the finish line, but the beginning of a new responsibility. I set priorities, made plans, and asked for guidance on every major decision. The discipline of stewardship brought a new kind of peace. I learned that wealth handled with wisdom multiplies not only materially, but spiritually. It draws your heart away from selfish indulgence and points it toward purposeful living. This change in perspective also protected me from the subtle traps of pride and comparison. I was not trying to prove anything to anyone. I was learning to manage what was entrusted to me with integrity. Over time, that posture opened doors to further opportunities because people tend to trust those who demonstrate faithfulness with what they have. The experience taught me that stewardship is a form of worship, not in singing or speaking, but in the daily decisions you make with the resources placed in your hands. It turns every choice about money into an act of honor, every careful plan into a testimony of gratitude. And when the next blessing came, it was not wasted because I had learned to be prepared, to allocate wisely, and to remember that I am only a caretaker of what ultimately belongs to God. Gratitude is often misunderstood as a public performance. Many think that to show gratitude is to speak about it loudly, to tell as many people as possible. True gratitude, however, is most powerful when it begins in the quiet of the heart. It is a deep, steady awareness that without divine favor, the breakthrough would not have happened. This kind of gratitude does not demand an audience. It grows stronger in silence. The blessing that came into my life taught me that not everything good needs to be broadcast. In fact, there is a sacredness to certain gifts. They are meant to draw you closer to the giver, not to distract you with the reactions of others. Keeping the blessing private for a season allowed me to savor it more deeply. I could pray with genuine thankfulness, reflect on what had happened, and let the gratitude transform my outlook. Secrecy, in this sense, is not about hiding in shame, but about protecting something precious. It shields the blessing from becoming a subject of gossip or envy. It also preserves the purity of your motive, ensuring that your thanksgiving is directed upward rather than outward. As I kept my gratitude quiet, I noticed that it deepened my faith. I was no longer relying on public affirmation to feel blessed. I was content in knowing that the one who provided saw my heart. This inward contentment changed how I related to others. I became less anxious about opinions and more focused on living out the blessing in practical ways, by being generous, by showing kindness, by encouraging someone who felt forgotten. The testimony was still being shared, but it was shared through action rather than words. People could see the difference without needing to know the details. This taught me that gratitude is most authentic when it is consistent and humble, when it moves us to live with open hands rather than boastful lips. Over time, the quiet practice of thankfulness turned into a lifestyle that not only honored the source of the blessing, but also inspired others to trust that unseen hand in their own struggles. Experiencing financial blessing in a moment of need reshapes how you see the world. Before that moment, faith may feel like an abstract idea, a principle to be learned. Afterward, it becomes personal and living because you have seen it produce tangible results. The first effect of this is a renewed sense of trust. You realize that if God could intervene in this particular crisis, He is able to intervene in other areas too. That realization expands the horizon of your faith. You no longer pray with hesitant words. You pray with expectation. The blessing that came to me was not enormous by the standards of the world, but it was unmistakably an answer to prayer. That fact made me dare to believe for more, not for selfish accumulation, but for higher purposes, to be able to support others in need, to contribute to causes that uplift lives, to pursue dreams that seemed too large before. Renewed faith ignites greater vision. It shifts your attention from survival to purpose. You begin to see possibilities where you once saw limits. You realize that the same God who can provide for rent or debt can also provide wisdom for leadership, courage for challenges, and resources for building something lasting. The experience also dismantles fear. Many people live under the shadow of financial anxiety. But once you have experienced divine provision, you carry within you a testimony that pushes back against fear. This does not mean you stop working diligently or planning wisely. Rather, it means you face the future with hope rather than dread. That hope becomes contagious. Others see in you a steadiness that inspires them to believe. In this way, a single moment of provision becomes the seed of a larger harvest, not only in your life, but in the lives of those around you. The key is to let the memory of that blessing continue to fuel your vision. Instead of treating it as a one-time rescue, you let it remind you daily that you are supported by a faithful source. This shift from desperation to expectation is what propels you toward greater achievements and deeper purpose. One of the most remarkable aspects of a private blessing is how it influences others without fanfare. When I chose not to announce the details of my financial breakthrough, I thought it would remain entirely unseen. To my surprise, the change it produced in my attitude became visible to people around me. They noticed the peace replacing my former anxiety, the generosity in my actions, the quiet confidence in my words. Without sharing figures or stories, I was sharing a testimony. Authentic living speaks more powerfully than any proclamation. People are drawn not to the size of what you received, but to the spirit you carry because of it. This realization shifted my focus. I no longer felt pressured to impress anyone with accounts of what had happened. I wanted my life itself to reflect the goodness I had experienced. In conversations, I was more encouraging. In decisions, more thoughtful. In challenges, more hopeful. Gradually, others began to ask what had changed. That opened the door to share not just about a financial event, but about the faithfulness behind it. The sharing then came naturally, without exaggeration or pride. It was simply a witness to hope. Authentic living after a blessing also involves consistency. It is easy to be grateful in the immediate glow of a breakthrough, but the true impact is seen over time in how you manage your resources, how you treat people, how you face new difficulties. When your life continues to demonstrate humility, gratitude, and generosity, it becomes a steady beacon to others. This form of testimony requires no stage and no spotlight. It flows from daily choices. It teaches that the greatest influence we can have is often not in our speeches but in our conduct. As people observe the genuine transformation, they gain courage to trust that the same grace can reach them. In this way, the private testimony of a single person becomes a shared encouragement for many, proving that hope is not confined to stories told from a platform, but can be read in the life of anyone who has truly been blessed and transformed.